A chemical plant is on fire in the middle of an Israeli city. 11 people are injured. Missile debris is scattered across residential streets, and the Israeli military has confirmed what residents already knew. Iranian ballistic missiles reached Beersheba. This is not a border skirmish. This is not a single intercepted projectile. This is a coordinated Iranian missile barrage targeting the fourth largest city in Israel, a metropolitan area of over 300,000 people, home to one of the most sensitive military and industrial corridors in the entire Middle East. And within hours of impact, certain satellite feeds over the affected district went dark. Local emergency responders were operating under sealed zone protocols, and the international press was working off a single official statement. Most people think this was a failed strike with minimal consequences. In reality, what hit Beersheba last night may represent the most significant direct Iranian missile penetration of Israeli airspace since the April 2024 barrage. And this time, something burned. I'm going to walk you through exactly what we know, what the strike hit, what it ignited, and why the response from both governments tells a very different story than the one being published. In the next couple of minutes, I will show you what really happened, and why there are people on both sides who want parts of this to stay hidden. Quick, before we continue, thanks a lot for tuning in. Your support is what keeps this show going, and I genuinely appreciate you watching. Please make sure you are subscribed and like the video so more people get to see this. Now let us get to it. You need to understand what Beersheba is before you can understand why it was targeted. Beersheba is the capital of the Negev desert and the undisputed hub of Israel's southern military-industrial complex. It sits within a 15-kilometer radius of the Nevatim Air Force Base, the same base that was struck during the April 2024 Iranian barrage, Ben Gurion's nuclear research infrastructure corridor, multiple defense electronics manufacturing facilities, and a network of chemical and petrochemical industrial plants that supply both civilian and military logistics chains. The Soroka Medical Center, Israel's largest hospital by floor area, operates there. So does Ben Gurion University of the Negev, one of the primary research institutions feeding Israel's defense technology pipeline. This is not a soft civilian target chosen at random. Beersheba was chosen because of what it contains. We will come back to the chemical plant specifically, but first, you need to understand the trajectory that led to this strike. Iran's missile doctrine has undergone a documented strategic evolution since October 2023. Following the October 7 attacks, Iran moved from proxy-only engagement toward a dual-track model, maintaining plausible deniability through Hezbollah, the Houthis, and Iraqi militias, while simultaneously retaining the option of direct launch from Iranian territory. The April 2024 barrage, involving over 300 drones and ballistic missiles, was the first direct Iranian strike on Israel in modern history. The October 2024 follow-on barrage introduced Fatah-1 hypersonic-class ballistic missiles. Each iteration tested Israeli air defense architecture, specifically the layered integration of Arrow 3, Arrow 2, David's Sling, and Iron Dome. What you are watching in Beersheba is Iteration 3. Here is what we know happened. Multiple Iranian ballistic missiles were launched toward southern Israel. The Israeli Defense Forces confirmed the barrage. Air raid sirens activated across the Negev district, the Dead Sea region, and into the greater Beersheba metropolitan zone. Residents were directed to shelters. Some did not make it in time. 11 people were confirmed injured, with at least 2 reports of moderate to serious injuries from falling missile fragments and structural impact in the immediate strike zone. Then the fire started. A chemical plant located in the Ne'ot Hovav industrial zone, approximately 10 kilometers southeast of central Beersheba, was struck or directly ignited by missile debris. The Ne'ot Hovav industrial zone is not a random civilian facility. It is one of the most concentrated repositories of hazardous chemical waste and active industrial chemical processing in the entire country of Israel. It houses over 30 licensed industrial facilities. It processes chlorine derivatives, industrial solvents, agrochemical compounds, and petrochemical byproducts. The Israel Environmental Protection Ministry has historically classified Ne'ot Hovav as a Category A hazardous industrial site. When footage showed a wall of flame visible for kilometers and smoke columns rising over the Negev skyline, that was not a warehouse fire. That was a Category A hazardous site burning after a direct missile proximity event. And here's the contradiction nobody wants to address. The official casualty figure is 11 injured, but Ne'ot Hovav sits 10 kilometers from a dense urban population. The wind vectors over the Negev at night move northwest, directly toward residential Beersheba. The question of what was in that smoke and who breathed it has not been answered in any official statement released within the first 12 hours. Stay with me because this is where the suppression signal becomes visible. Most people think Iran's missile program cannot consistently penetrate Israeli air defenses. In reality, Iran has been systematically mapping Israeli air defense radar coverage, intercept corridors, and reload intervals across every barrage since April 2024. The ballistic missiles used in this strike have not been officially designated in Israeli military statements released to date. That silence is itself a data point. When Israel confirms an intercept, they name the system used. When they do not name the system, it usually means the intercept was either partial, failed, or the debris that landed was the result of a fragmented intercept rather than a clean kill. Fragmented intercepts produce shrapnel fields. Shrapnel fields hit things, chemical plants for instance. The Fatah-1, Iran's Mach 13 plus hypersonic glide vehicle, presents a specific challenge to Arrow 3 because its terminal phase maneuver profile is designed to defeat kinetic intercept geometry. If any component of this barrage included Fatah variant systems, the 11 injured figure and the chemical plant ignition may not represent the worst-case outcome. They may represent the outer edge of a much narrower margin. Satellite imagery over Ne'ot Hovav was not available on two major commercial providers within the assessment window. Google Maps has not updated street-level data for the facility access roads since 2023. The Israeli Homefront Command sealed the approach zone within 40 minutes of the first confirmed impact. That detail matters because sealed zones and imagery gaps are not coincidental. They are managed. This is not the first time Beersheba has been targeted, but it is the first time an Iranian missile barrage has produced confirmed secondary ignition at a hazardous industrial site inside Israeli territory. In the 1991 Gulf War, Scud missiles targeting Israeli cities forced mass shelter mobilization and caused significant civilian psychological impact despite limited direct casualties. The lesson Israel drew from that campaign was that missile defense architecture was existential, not optional. Every layer of what became the current multi-tiered air defense system traces its institutional origin to those Scud impacts. In April 2024, Iran launched over 300 projectiles directly. Israel, with US, UK, French, and Jordanian cooperation, intercepted over 99%. The Israeli government declared a strategic victory. Then they quietly acknowledged that debris from intercepted missiles had landed in the Negev. Debris lands. Debris causes casualties. Debris starts fires. The pattern across 1991, 2024, and now is identical. Each escalation tests the floor of what is survivable. Each iteration probes whether the cost-exchange ratio of a direct barrage is politically and operationally sustainable for Iran. And each time the answer they receive is closer than last time. I want to show you the human dimension of what 11 injured in Beersheba actually means. Those 11 people were in a city under air raid sirens. Some were running, some were sheltering in designated protected spaces that were not designed to withstand direct debris impact from a ballistic fragmentation event. At least one report, sourced through Israeli Emergency Services communications, monitored by open-source analysts, indicated that a residential structure in the northern district of the city sustained structural damage from missile debris. That means someone was inside. And while this was happening, a chemical plant 10 kilometers away was burning. And nobody in any official capacity, in Israel or Iran or the United States, has yet publicly stated what chemical compounds were aerosolized in that fire, and whether they drifted over a sleeping city. That is not a war story. That is a public health event that has not been named yet. Now, toward the end here, I want to show you what this means beyond the Negev. Iran has now demonstrated 3 times that it will launch directly at Israeli territory. Each time, the Israeli response has been calibrated to avoid full regional escalation. Each time, the threshold for what constitutes an act of war has been stretched. This barrage did not just test Israeli air defenses. It tested whether the international community, specifically the United States, which maintains force presence in the region, would treat a missile strike that ignited a hazardous chemical facility as a red line or as a manageable incident. The answer delivered within the first 12 hours was manageable incident. That answer will be noted in Tehran. It will be noted in Moscow. It will be noted in Beijing, where the strategic value of watching American deterrence capacity absorb Iranian provocations without kinetic response has been studied with considerable interest since October 2023. Most people think this is a regional conflict between Israel and Iran. In reality, Beersheba is a test case for how far ballistic coercion can go before it triggers a systemic response from the West. And so far, the answer is further than anyone publicly admits. Here is where we land. A city of 300,000 people came under ballistic missile attack. 11 people are confirmed injured. A Category A hazardous chemical facility is on fire. Satellite imagery gaps and sealed zones are active. The missile systems used have not been publicly designated, and the international response has been measured, careful, and deliberately below the threshold of escalation. The official narrative is that this was a serious but contained incident. The factual record suggests something harder to contain, a steady, deliberate campaign of direct strikes on Israeli urban and industrial infrastructure that is advancing in precision, payload, and secondary consequence with every iteration. The question is not whether this will happen again. It will. The question is what version of this comes next, and whether the infrastructure that burns next time is a chemical plant or something with a much larger blast radius. Thanks a lot for watching. I really appreciate your support and the fact that you stayed with this until the end. Join the discussion in the comments below and let me know your thoughts. Do you think the international community's measured response to this barrage will encourage or deter Iran from launching again? And what would a genuine red line actually look like at this stage? And with a Category A chemical facility now confirmed burning inside Israeli territory, do you believe the full environmental and health consequences of this strike are being disclosed to the public? Or are we only seeing part of the picture? Let me know. Please subscribe and like the video if you want to stay updated on this situation as it develops. And click the video on the screen to see another. I will see you soon. This is not a conflict approaching a turning point. It has already passed several. What is left now is the question of which side blinks first, and what is still standing when they do.